Irene, I wonder how it felt to have to leave the village after that strike.
We felt real sad about it because we had a lot of friends there, and I still have those friends after all these years, all of them that's still living.
How did people feel about you and your family having to leave?
Well, they hated it, of course, but the same as we did, but there wasn't anything we could do about it because we had to move on where we could find a way to make a living.
Now, a lot of people that we've spoken to are ashamed of their activity in the Union in 1934.
Well, I'm not ashamed of it because really we didn't know what we was doing. I've never been ashamed of it.
Some people are afraid to speak about it even to this day.
I know.
Okay. Some people, we've found some people to be afraid to speak about this strike 57 years later.
Well, I'm not. I don't see why they'd be afraid to speak about it.
Why aren't you afraid?
I got nerve.
Now, did your papa, was he angry at all of you for joining the Union? Was he frightened? What was going on?
No, my father didn't get frightened about it, but he warned us that it might cause us to lose our job, but we didn't.
Now, you mentioned that you had a good time when you were marching along and so forth. Could you talk about that and tell us what you sang?
As we marched along, we sang gospel songs and told funny things that happened to each one, and we enjoyed it. We laughed and talked a lot.
You remember which songs you sang?
No, I don't remember which songs we sang.
Did you ever go to any, did they used to have revivals in East Newnan?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that.
A preacher, I can't think of his name now. What was his name? Gooseby. Preacher Gooseby came there and put up a tent, had a tent meeting for 2 or 3 weeks right straight along, and everybody went. They'd beg for money and they'd jump over seats and anything else to get money if anybody held any up, and it was real comical to see them talk and act like that because we hadn't ever been used to such.
Can you tell me again about your family coming from the country to East Newnan and why they wanted to hire your family?
Say that question again, please.
Okay. Irene, why was your family such a hireable kind of family?
Because there was a lot of us that was old enough to work. And it was lots of help to the mill company to have that many people in one family working, because they could work in different departments. Of course, most of us did work in the spinning room, but my daddy swept the floor, and my brother worked in the twisting room, and my mother never did work in the mill, thank the Lord.
Thank the Lord. Why are you glad she didn't work in the mills?
Because it was hard work. She had a hard enough time raising that many children. Don't see how she lived through it. Because I didn't raise but one, and it was a hard job.
Okay. Could you tell me one more time about your father and all of you leaving the country and coming to the mill?
Rephrase that question more precisely.
Okay. Why did your family leave the country to come work in a cotton mill?
Because my brother already worked there, and he knew he was making money, which we had never made, and there goes the wasp. No one's letting them bugs all in.
We'll get that wasp out.
Eh.
Yeah.
The wasp will get you.
Maybe
May I speak?
Yes, sir.
All right. You were telling us the other day why you think this is so important for us to do it. Could you tell these gentlemen why you think so?
The main thing I think is important for the young people, for the elder people that's been through the troublesome days, I'll say, to know and understand what we've been through to where they can take advantage and not have to put up with those days. That is one of the main things that I think that this is good for.
Can we do that one more time, sir? Sir, look at George all the time and tell George that, sir.
All right, sorry.
Just a moment for me also. I need
All yours.
Okay. Once again, Lonnie, would you tell us in very strong terms the way you're doing the other day, why do you think it's important that young people know about the things that happened in the 30s?
The main thing that I think you should know is what the elder people had to go through with and the hard labor they had to go through with for such a little amount of money. You could work yourself to death and still didn't make a decent living. And that's why that I think that they should know about this. And also, there was a more or less just like a slave drive part of the time. And they should know about that, I think. And I'm glad to be able to tell the young people and the people about what we've been through with. Because nowadays,
I'm sorry, we need to change the battery.
Oh dear.
Want me to get it? It's inside, right?
No, I've got one right
Sorry, we
here.
had to start over again.
I'm very sorry about that.
Couldn't find this.
Sorry, George. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, Lonnie, tell me that again. Strong.
the reason that I think that people should know what the elder people has been through and the hard times and the hard struggle and the hard labor they've had. They should know about it for history. Because the most of the people you tell now, just one individual, they think it's never been days like that. And if people would come forward and tell what we've been through, they should know and understand that it is true.
Well, now, we've been running into a lot of people who are ashamed to talk about what happened. Why do you think that's true?
Well, a lot of it is pride. Another thing,
Let's start off with saying if people are ashamed about it, it's because of pride.
that's right. I think the most thing is pride, the reason they don't like to talk about it. And the second thing, they still feel the fear of thinking that they might come back on them. That's my way of thinking now. I could be wrong on it, but I think that is two of the main things.
How could it come back on them?
Well, they're afraid they might get sued or something like that. And that's just, I can't really tell you, but I think that is most of the thing right there.
Well, now, you came into the mills very early. Could you tell me about your early times in the mill?
Yeah, we went to work in the mill back in 29. And back then, you worked 11 hours and 45 minutes a day. And the first ticket I drove was $2.45. The next ticket I drove was $2.75. I paid $1.25 a week for it. And my first wife is deceased. She worked 6 weeks for a quarter. And when the 6th week comes, she went down, got her haircut. Her haircut cost her a quarter. So that made her work 6 weeks for a quarter. But here's what people don't understand now. They don't think that there's ever been times that you had to work for a tryout, actually for a job. They could work you 6 weeks for nothing, and they didn't have to give you a thing. And a lot of time when the 6 weeks was up, if you made them good hand, they'd tell you they didn't need you. Well, they'd give them a new crew to come in. They'd get work for nothing. And I'm glad that we had a president to come in and step in and stop all that. And as I said the other day, I think one of the greatest presidents we'll ever had or ever will have for the working man is President Roosevelt.
Now, what did you do in the mill, and what was it like to work there?
I'd off spinning, and you didn't catch up. There wasn't no catching up to it. And another thing that they didn't like is they didn't want you stopping, talking to nobody. If they caught you talking, they whistled at you. That meant stop. And it was hard labor. And a lot of that depended on the overseers. If you happen to have a good overseer, he'd let you buy a lot of things like that. But most people in those days was digging for more money and more pride, more power. And that's why that they were so tight like that, which there wasn't no need in it. A man's going to do a day's work. He's going to give you a day's work without somebody hollering and whistling at him and everything. And I'm glad such as that was stopped.
Well, now, what did you do to stop that?
Well, the individual workers didn't stop it. It's like I come back to the president again. He is the main man that stopped it. And I think he let the companies and the man in power know that they had power over them. And they seen that there had to be a let up. And then the strike come on, and that had a little bit to do with it too.
Sorry, we got a big loud car.
Yeah.
I want you to start again, and instead of saying the president, I want you to say Roosevelt.
All right.
That's about different. Tell me when you're ready, Lonnie. Okay now.
Well, Roosevelt, when he come in, he let the working man know that he was by his side and with him. And he let them know that the company didn't have all power, that he had power over the company. And that made a big difference right there. And that's where today we ought to be proud of the man that come in and stood behind. And he also made jobs, created jobs, and put money back to rolling, which in the late 20s, there wasn't no money in power. And what people did have to sit down on it, wouldn't spend it. And it just paralyzed the nation, rather. But I'm glad. I'm glad to see the big change come when it did.
Now, you were about to talk about the union. Could you starting using the word union?
Well, they tried to organize a union, which I think would have been pretty good if it would have been organized right. But they called it a wildcat union, wildcat strikes. They come in and begin to try to lock people out from their own companies and everything, which that wasn't lawful, that wasn't legal. And that just messed up everything right there and really hurt the working man and helped him too. They seen that the working man wasn't afraid to buck up against him, and it got a lot of people out of jobs that they never did work for public work no more because they were blackballed. If you were blackballed, you didn't go to work nowhere else because they'd call in and let them know, or they'd throw you out.
Now, first I want you to go back and tell me when you first got in touch, the union got first in touch with you, and where this was and what happened.
Well, I was working down at the mill, and they tried to get everybody.
You want to tell which mill, okay?
East Union Mill.
To start, I first worked in East Union Mill.
Yeah. And when the
No,
people,
start and say, I first worked in East Noonan Mills when the union came.
I was working in East Union Mill when they tried to organize a union. And there was a lot of people lost their jobs forever about it. And they went at it, as I said, altogether wrong. It wasn't legal, wasn't lawful the way they done it. They were plumb out of reason with it. So that made a little change right there.
But see, what we're trying to get people to see is how it happened. So could you just think back then and remember where you were working and who talked to you and what they said and what you did?
Well, as I said, I was working in the East Union Mill, and Homer Wells from LaGrange, Georgia, and Mutt Jones up here on Roscoe Road. They was the one that contacted me and tried to get me to join. And when they was talking about how they was going to do, I told them, I said, that's not right. Then you ain't going to get nowhere at that, which they didn't. They didn't get nowhere with it. But it did let the oil companies know that the people wasn't under the stage of fright like it was. I put it that way.
No, we have to do that again because you said the oil companies, and I don't think you meant the cotton mill companies, didn't you?
I said oil companies.
Oil companies. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I interrupted you, so we have to do that all over again, and I like the way you name those two men because then we can see them, you see. Okay, start East Union Mills again, okay?
all right. I was working the East Union Mill, and they tried to get this union organized. So Mutt Jones and Homer Wells, they tried to get everybody to join, tried to get me to join, and tried to get all hands to join that would join. And a lot of them joined. I'll say over half of them joined. Well, they come in and locked all the gates and let even the owners in. Well, when they got the law and the National Guard to come down and cut the locks and chains, well, that let the people come in. Well, the company put a man out there, which was overseer and the superintendent. And as hands come in, he would tell them let them in, turn them back. They turned all the union back and let the non-union go in and go to work. And I fought back to the president right there now. He wanted the union, the workers' union, organized. But that's where, as I said, the people went overboard with it and used the wrong management altogether about it. There wasn't no management to it.
Now, where were you doing all this time?
What was I doing? Well, while that was going on, there wasn't nothing to do. You just had to wait and see what happened. And there wasn't nothing to do, just pick up jobs around anywhere you could. They had peach orchards in Caddy County then. And during that time, I went out and helped in peach orchards. Just anything to make a little money, you know. Because you had to have a little income from somewhere, in some way.
Now, what happened to the fellows who did go out on strike?
Well, most of them, I think,
Just most of the fellows went out on strike.
that most of them had to go back to farms
Good.
and
Most of
sawmilling
them-
and
just
citrus.
start again and say most of the fellows who went out on strike. Okay.
Most of the fellas who went out on strike, they had to go back to the farm because they was through the public works, especially textile work, because they was blackballed in it. And when you blackballed, see, you got a black book and a white book. And your name goes down that black book, one company notifies the other. A lot of people don't understand that, but that's the way it works. And that's the way it did work. And there was a lot of people that really suffered on account of that. I mean, they suffered because they had to go back to just picking up anything they could get, anywhere and any way.
Now, what about, were there members of your families who got caught like this?
Not in my immediate family, no. Because we all know that it was wrong. We all know that it wasn't going to hold up the way it was going, which looked like common sense would have teached anybody that. And we all stayed out of it. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You take back then, if people had jobs, they tried every way they could to hold them. Because they knowed if they got out of the job, there wasn't nowhere else to go. Because there just wasn't that many jobs for the people. And when you got one, they used to have a saying in the mill that if you don't want to do the job and can't do the job, if it's talking to men, they'd say a barefooted man's at the gate waiting for you. If it's talking to a lady, they'd tell her there's a barefooted lady at the gate waiting for her, waiting for them to let her go. And a lot of them went that way too. I tell you, it was fearless times. It was fearless times.
Tell us about some of your friends who might have gotten caught like that.
Well, some of my best friends got caught in it.
Hold it just a minute.
Yeah, let's wait on the plane.
We'll wait on the plane. It's going very well, though. Actually, about some of your friends that got caught in this.
Yeah, there was some of my friends, best friends, got caught in that. They was misled into it and talked into it. Had lost their jobs or ever. And they had to go back to farms and sawmilling and such as that. 'Cause that done the textile work. It was done. Now, we had a lot of textile companies that was good companies.
We really need to stop.
Okay.
Rolling in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, you were talking about some of your friends and what happened to them.
Well, when they got caught in that union, they lost their jobs, and as I said a while ago, they were blackballed. So that put them to have to go on a farm or just pick up little jobs anywhere and anywhere they could get it. But it ruined a lot of them forever. A lot of them never did make a comeback on it.
Well, now you were around when the NRA came in. What was the difference between working the way you used to and then when you had on the 8 hours?
Well, that made it altogether different.
Just talk about, we were working so long and then the NRA came in and tell us.
Well, we were working at 11 hours and 45 minutes a day. And when it started on that 8 hours, it was like everybody that was off over half of the time. It was like they was on a picnic then. It gave you time to rest up. And it made it altogether different. And it gave so many more people new jobs, you see. And that's where it really come in handy. And that's what really started the ball rolling again. Because it put over half as many people to work when they done that. And then it started up at third shift. Well, that put that much more to work. And that made money roll pretty good then. And the ball started rolling. It rolled pretty well ever since then.
And then what did the company do about the stretch out? Tell us about the stretch out.
Well, they speeded up machinery. They added more on the people's work, on the jobs, and they tried to make up everything they could to where it bring the price on up and all. And a lot of them was really overloaded. And they really speeded the machinery up to make it put out more production and all. But it made a big change. It made a big change in the freedom of working. It helped in a lot of different ways right there.
Now, you were telling us about the effect of the speed up, the stretch out. Could you just describe it using that term?
Well, the machinery was running at a slow speed. And when they picked it up and speeded it up, some of it I'd say was nearly twice as fast. Well, that made it put out as much again production. Well, you really had to get up and get to stay in there with it. And that's what really made it bad right there. There's a lot of people couldn't take it. A lot of people just couldn't live up to it. It was so bad. And that's where these stretch outs and all now, it's never been like it was since then.
Do you think that the stretch out had anything to do with the union?
Well, they might have been wanting to get a little revenge right there too. I wouldn't doubt but what it didn't have a little bit to do with it.
What I mean is that, do you think the stretch out was one of the reasons why people joined the union, if you did say so?
Well, yeah, that had something to do with it.
No, I'm sorry. could you say, I think the stretch out had something to do with it, if you do think that?
Well, that I can say, really. I really can't, I wouldn't attempt to say that because I could be wrong on that. Because that was their ideas, and we can't go with the other man's thoughts there. And I really couldn't say that to be right there.
Were you stretched out?
We all was. Everybody was stretched out at work. Because when you got so many frames to off, you got so a spinner's got so many sides to run and everything. And when they speed those frames up, or where you in just an average walk, it puts you in a trot, and you got to really get up and go to stay with it. I'll put it this way. Say if you try to trot and keep up with the car, the faster that car goes, the faster you got to go. If you stay up with it, and that works the same way on the machinery like that.
Okay.
It's not what I hold from this point.
Okay. Okay. Tell us about the supervisors.
Well, we had some good supervisors. We had some that wanted to be a smart aleck and to show the power. And when you got one like that, you had trouble because you couldn't please them. Wasn't a way you could please them. And they didn't have no pity on you. But it was a very few of them that was like, I'd say was real bad. But it was bad enough for all of them because all of them had to see that everybody done the job. That was company's rules, that everybody had to see that everybody run the job and done the job. And it's like I said, you find good and bad and everything. And a lot of times it was real bad. You didn't have no freedom after you got off from your work. You were still under their command. And say if I got mad with somebody and wanted to get them out of a job, all I had to do was go tell the company they went so and so, such and such a place, and got drunk. They fired him, which I knowed one man carried a family to Tallapoosa, Georgia, to see some of the sick people. He went on to Alabama to visit his people, come back and picked the man up, and the man come back and told the company that he got drunk, and they fired him. And he was out of a job about 2 or 3 months. That's because this man told that lie on him. And there wasn't no right to that. That was all. It was all wrong. And we had that to continue with. And you just didn't know any time. You could get fired any time and be innocent. That's the way it was. With some companies. Now, like I said, there were some companies. Now, my wife, she worked down here for Arnold Mills, and they was altogether different. They helped the hands every way they could and was good to them. But it was all